Public Health Down Under. A comparison between the American and Australian healthcare systems. Presentation by Joe Moloczyj. My trip began in Chicago, Illinois. From here, I flew to San Francisco, to Sydney, and finally to Brisbane. Throughout my time in Australia, I had the opportunity to learn a lot about their health system. In doing this, I was able to notice many differences between the health system down under and the system we are used to in the United States. My peers and I visited different sites that helped us discover these differences. These sites included Cutting Edge Performance, Greenslopes Private Hospital, and Bounce Physio, just to name a few. As I was exploring Australia, there were 10 key differences that I noticed between the Australian and United States health systems. Each of these differences are very diverse. Some of them relate to healthcare, while others relate to public health, and so on. So without further ado, here are my 10 differences between the Australian and United States health systems. Number 1. The healthcare system. During our second site visit at Greenslopes Private Hospital, CEO Chris Wendt told us about how individuals in Australia have the option to purchase private healthcare or use Medicare, which is the public healthcare system. With private healthcare, one of the main benefits is a reduced wait time for different procedures, as Medicare works on a first-come, first-served basis. Because of this, patients in the public health system may need to wait upwards of weeks at a time just to receive the care that they need. Individuals with private healthcare also have the luxury of utilizing private facilities such as Greenslopes. In the United States, on the other hand, there is no widely available public healthcare system. Only few individuals, such as the elderly and those with very low income, have access to Medicare. All other individuals need to fund their own healthcare by themselves or through their employer. This is generally done through insurance. Let's take a look at an example of this difference between the two systems. Say a low-income individual suffers an injury at the gym and needs to be transferred to the hospital via an ambulance. In Australia, Medicare would cover the cost of their ride in the ambulance. In the United States, if this individual did not have private health insurance, they would be stuck paying for the entire cost of the ambulance, possibly putting them into debt for years to come. Clearly, this makes the public healthcare system very beneficial to those who need it in Australia. Number 2. Paying for college tuition. In Australia, students do not need to start paying their college tuition until they are graduated and find a job with a salary that is at least $42,000 per year. They then pay 2% of their salary towards college. This in turn not only contributes to financial health, but also physical health. It allows graduates to put more money into things like fresh foods and private healthcare if they choose to. This is much different from the United States, where you often hear of college graduates having overwhelming amounts of student debt which they struggle to pay off for years and years after graduation. The biggest difference, however, is that students in the United States need to pay for college up front rather than after graduation. This can make money tight as they go through school, making their own health less of a priority due to lack of funds. Number 3. Community health promotion. Take a look at this sign found on the Queensland public train. It shows a woman falling down an escalator because she was on her phone and not paying attention to where she was going. It reads, "The best prevention is paying attention." Simple health-related advertisements and messages similar to this could be found all around Brisbane. This shows that governments and businesses truly care about the well-being of the public. Here is another example of one of these public health messages. This message was found in a casino and advertised a gambling help hotline that individuals can call if they feel they are addicted to gambling. This shows an effort to help against mental health. Messages like these are rare to come by here in the United States. You sometimes see similar messages in the United States that revolve around smoking or drinking. An example of this would be the popular Truth campaign that can be seen in advertisements online and on TV. While this seems to be effective, it simply does not go to the same preventative extent as similar messages would in Australia. The next image will provide an example of this. Just know the image is rather graphic. This image shows the back of a package of cigarettes and is an example of what Australian cigarette companies are required to show on their packages. This is likely much more effective than the extent to which cigarettes are advertised against in the United States. Number 4. Community exercise promotion. Throughout many of the parks and beaches in the Brisbane area, exercise machines such as these ones are available for use by any individuals. This not only promotes exercise by making equipment readily available, but it also provides those who may not have a gym membership access to these machines. Here are some of the machines that were found in public places over the course of our trip. Take a look at this information posted on a chest press machine found at the Gold Coast's Surfers Paradise Beach. This sign gives recommendations for beginners, explains the purpose of the exercise, and discusses the benefits towards staying active, all on the side of the machine. Seeing machines such as these along with this detailed exercise information promoted out in the public was truly a sight to see, and one that is rarely seen in the United States, where this level of health promotion is truthfully unmatched. Number 5. Encouraging children to exercise. For one of our site visits, we had the opportunity to visit trainer Sue Ann and her Boxing for Fitness class. This is a free boxing class geared towards children and young teenagers. As it turns out, this class is a huge hit within the community, having around 20 to 30 children and teenagers participate. In the United States, that might not be the case. Here, there are many barriers, such as technology, that keep children from staying active. Of course, there are movements towards encouraging children to go outside and play, though that does not quite stack up to the overwhelming success of similar actions in Australia. This can be seen with the overwhelming success of programs such as Boxing for Fitness. Number 6. Child services in the workplace. When we went to Embrace Life, I was pleasantly surprised to hear about their accommodations to children in their workplace. First, they hold free child clinics to work with mothers and their young children. While this is very nice, it doesn't stop there. Those at Embrace Life will actually have an employee come in and play with children while their parent is visiting the clinic. Of course, many businesses in the United States have child waiting rooms or activities to keep children entertained while parents are visiting. Though Embrace Life shows the level to which those in Australia truly care about accommodating children and ensuring that children are properly nurtured for in the early stages of life. Think back to the Boxing for Fitness class which was previously mentioned. Between this and Embrace Life's free child services, it is clear that the Australian health system goes above and beyond when it comes to child health. Number 7. Safety at the beach. While in Australia, we had the opportunity to visit 4 different beaches across Queensland. Many of the beaches we visited take health and safety very seriously. Take a look at this beach report sign found on Cylinder Beach on North Stradbroke Island. This sign is rewritten every day and displays the conditions of the beach and water and also tells some general safety tips. The back of the sign displays some more rules and tells the meaning of each of the various colored flags across the beach. One that I would like to point out is these red and yellow flags. There are always 2 of these set up along the beach. They signify that it is safe to swim in between the 2 red and yellow flags. At Surfers Paradise Beach, lifeguards would actually get on a megaphone and announce whenever anyone is swimming outside of the flags to keep those individuals safe. In the United States, while there are lifeguards keeping individuals safe on the beach, I have never seen them enforce rules as strict as the rules seen on the beaches in Queensland. From what I have seen, in the US, lifeguards are generally there to help individuals who may be struggling or drowning in the water. Of course, they may have rules set in place, though those rules aren't enforced to the same extent that they are in Queensland. Now, I do not believe that strict beach rules in Queensland is a bad thing. The beach can potentially be a dangerous place between the waves, currents, and marine life. Having these rules in place helps to ensure that individuals are able to enjoy their time at the beach, all while staying as safe as possible. Number 8. Safety within sports. In Australia, one of our program activities included going to a Brisbane Broncos rugby game. While watching the game, I was surprised to notice that the players on the field have virtually no protective equipment on. What surprised me even more is when Dr. H told me that even though rugby players in Australia wear no equipment, injury rates are still lower than the injury rates for American football players. This is generally because the equipment that American football players wear causes them to feel safer and in turn play harder. Rugby players in Australia simply play the game more cautiously because they know they aren't protected as well. This is a major difference between the culture and mentality of sports players between the two countries. It ultimately leads to safer playing conditions for athletes in Australia. Number 9. Medical marijuana. Now, going into my trip to Australia, I did not quite expect to learn about the culture of medical marijuana in the country, though surprisingly, I did have the opportunity to learn about this topic. At the Queensland Health Tech Innovation Pitch event, a startup called MediPharm presented their company. After their presentation, I had an opportunity to talk to a representative of the company. When I asked him about the accessibility of medical marijuana in Australia, he said that in order to obtain it, individuals must prove to their doctor that no other form of medication has worked for their symptoms. In other words, medical marijuana is a last resort option in Australia. For the United States, every state has different rules and regulations, though generally to obtain medical marijuana, one must get a medical marijuana card from an authorized doctor. This can be as easy as presenting medical records and convincing the doctor that this form of treatment can truly help you. I would likely credit the stricter rules on medical marijuana in Australia to the fact that it seems to be a newer concept. If I were to make a prediction, I might say that rules and regulations on medical marijuana in Australia will slowly begin to follow in a similar direction to the United States. Number 10. Genetically modified organisms. While talking to Margaret Blade at Regional Development Australia, she told us that there is a lot of pushback towards genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, in Australia. This is to the extent that some states in Australia are totally GMO-free. In the United States, the use of GMOs is generally widespread, though as of recently, the use of GMOs has slowly begun to decline. However, it is very much still a large part of our agriculture. This could pose a risk to the health of those who consume foods with GMOs. Personally, I like the direction that Australia is heading in with GMOs. Eliminating GMOs from agriculture will make the consumption of various processed foods much safer and healthier. And there you have it, my 10 differences between the Australian and United States health systems. If I had to summarize the Australian health system into one closing statement, I would say that it follows an outstanding all for one and one for all mentality. With this, the government truly cares about keeping its people safe and healthy. It strives to make health services as widely and easily attainable as possible, and the health professionals truly care about keeping their clients healthy, not just making money. With all things considered, my experience in Australia was nothing short of extraordinary. I hope to take all of the information that I learned and use it to my advantage as I finish out my degree in exercise and wellness and start down my career path.